Hare Krishna. Shrimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai.
Jai Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So we welcome you all for this week's GitaforYou podcast. So you'll be seeing a different face this week hosting this podcast.
We have a special podcaster today, and we have a special person who is making up for the absence of Jai Kishan Prabhu. So we have Suraj Prabhu, and Suraj Prabhu is a very avid spiritual practitioner, and he's in the field of finance and accounting, and also an entrepreneur, running a family business also. So, and a very good friend too. So happy, Surya, to have you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for your kind words. So, do we start, Prabhu, now, or do we wait for some time?
Let's start. Let's begin. The ball has already started.
Yeah, sure. So, for the viewers, we'll recap what the previous session, just in a brief manner. So, in the previous session, Prabhu started with the 4th chapter of the Gita, and he mentioned about how Gita gives us the knowledge, but not only that, it also gives us the way to acquire that knowledge. And this knowledge and the way to acquire knowledge is how is it foolproof and self-sustainable. And he gave us that any self-sustainable model should have 4 characteristics, and how the Vedic tradition has that 4 characteristics. So he mentioned about how the Vedic tradition, the knowledge is retained through the Vedic Sabhyata and Sanskriti. So the knowledge is retained in the system like that, and the knowledge is so vast. We have so many Vedic scriptures, the Shastras. So the knowledge is constantly replenished through that Shastras. And the sadhus in the Vedic Sabhyata play a very important role. They revive that knowledge, and if not for that sadhu, God himself comes in various avatars to revive that knowledge. And through the Guru Shishya Parampara, the knowledge is replicated further and further. So these 4 R's of retaining, replenishing, reviving, and replication was given by Prabhuji previously. And we had an interesting discussion the last time. Yeah.
We are just replicating that knowledge.
Yeah, true indeed. So we had a very interesting discussion last time regarding the Kerala story, and Prabhu brought us from Kerala story to Krishna story. And we discussed many topics regarding one God or many God, and should we give God a form. And Prabhu gave so many beautiful analogies, examples, and he gave us understanding regarding that. And so we'll continue our discussion. So Prabhu, continuing our question answer, previously we understood the way to understand different traditions. So we should have, you mentioned that we should have a sympathetical attitude while understanding and open-minded attitude. So while understanding our own tradition, the Vedic tradition, we sometimes come across many challenges. We have challenges regarding understanding the caste system. So this caste system sometimes breeds discrimination, and this system sometimes seems exploitative in nature, so, and which breeds discrimination. So can you give us some spread some light on that?
It's a very touchy topic and an explosive topic as well. The caste system and the exploitation and discrimination which has been caused by this very discriminatory system provided in coming through the Vedas and these all of these ancient tradition of India. So yeah, we need to again understand it scientifically, the purpose of the system, why it was created, and any system over a period of time, it goes through its whole life cycle. When it is created, it has a certain purpose, but then if as Krishna says, Sakale neha mahata yoga nashta parantapa. A system is created initially for a certain purpose, but then because of the pollution of the people, the pollution of the hearts of the people who are using that system, they end up misusing the system, and then rather than the people, the system gets blamed for all the wrongdoing which happens. So let's go back to the source. What is the system which was created originally by the designer of the system? So Krishna says in the Gita, Chaturvarnyam maya system gunakarma vibhagashaha. So in this fourth chapter, Krishna is talking about this, this system of varna, which is known as the caste system in today's time. So Krishna says that these four orders of the society, four occupations of the society, they have been created by me based on guna and karma, basically based on the qualities of the person and based on the activities of the person. Nowhere does Krishna say that this system of varnas was created based on the birth of a person. So when we see that, okay, a person born in a certain family, a certain caste is discriminated against, so this is completely not supported by Krishna's varna ashram system, because as per Krishna, this varna ashram, the varnas are divided as per one's qualities, as per one's nature, which is quite natural. That even today, when you want to decide the stream which your child should take up, you look at their talent, their ability, their inclination, their aptitude, and accordingly decide whether your son or daughter should go into science or commerce or arts or any other stream, right? So it is all based on the person's individual talent. Ideally, the person's job and occupation should be determined by one's innate talent, abilities, what they like to do, what they are good at doing. And what Krishna is basically saying is that this varna system, it identifies that there are four different occupations very distinctly, and these four occupations are based on the talent that people have. So which is quite logical. It doesn't have any discrimination in place. It's quite logical that if a person has a certain talent, it should be used for an occupation which helps nourish and flourish that talent, right? So in that sense, so far so good. And all of these four varnas, let's understand what are these four varnas. We call Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Now, when I call it Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, when you hear the word Shudra, there is a certain taboo in our brains, in our head about, oh, Shudra means discrimination. But let us look what all these four classes are about. The Brahmanical class are the teachers of the society, who are the educators in the society. The Kshatriyas, they are the administrators in the society. The Vaishyas, they are the mercantile men, they are the merchants in the society, the traders. And the Shudras, they are the executors. So you call the chief execution officer, chief executive officer. So CEO. So we have a certain glory attached to that term. But then he's executing. So a Shudra is no less. In terms of the Vedic model, he's executing whatever the work needs to be done. He's executing the task, getting it executed, or basically doing it execution. So these are the four classes, and there is no discrimination. It's based on the talent that the person has. If someone is inclined towards teaching, it's best that they don't become a merchant. It's a different matter that today educators are more of merchants. It's a mismatch, and so that should not happen. So ideally, this system was meant to match people's talent with a particular occupation, which helps them utilize their talent in the best possible way. So that's the system all about. And the whole system was created in such a way that each of these occupations helps support the other occupations. So it's like, if we look at our whole body, the head, the Brahmanas, are compared to the head, the brain, which gives the direction, which does the thinking, which educates, right? The arms are the Kshatriyas. Now, when the brain tells us to do something, the arms are the one who administer that. They are the protectors. Any harm comes, the arm takes the harm, right? So that's the Kshatriyas. And the belly, the stomach, is compared to the merchants who produce, the merchants, the traders, the agriculturists who produce the grains for the society. And that's the merchant class, the Vaishya class, and the Shudra class are the executors who are most needed. So without your engineers, your electricians, your mechanical engineers, your mechanics, without all of them who are dealing with the ground details of executing things, you won't be able to run the society. So they are compared to the legs of the society who are in touch with the ground, right? And every class was respected. Every class, it was not that this class is respected, this class is disrespected. Every class was respected for the contribution that they make. Just for example, I don't say that only head is important. Without the hands, no one will feed the head. No one will feed the mouth. And without the stomach, you can't digest, you can't give energy to the rest of the body. So the head is important, the arms are important, the stomach is important, and the legs are important. Without, like, I have experience of being in a cast for a couple of months, and I know how torturous it is to operate without the legs functioning properly. So every class in the society is equally important. So, but what is the problem is, over a period of time, this entire thing was degraded because power corrupts. That we know that. And when the power was absolutely taken up by one of these classes, the entire system collapsed. For example, if the priestly class or the educators, they took up the entire power, the Brahmanas, then they started exploiting the others, right? When the Kshatriyas, they took the power in their hands, they became dictators. When the Vaishyas, they took up the power in their hands, they became the capitalists. And when the Shudras, they took up the entire power and disrespecting and disregarding the other classes of the society, there was communism. And you have example of Stalin and Mussolini and all of them inflicting so much violence on their own people. So basically, it's the anarthas within the heart of the people who take the power without understanding the purpose of the Varna, that they end up in exploiting the whole system and degrading the whole system. And if we look at it in today's society, today this caste-based discrimination, do we think with all the reservation and everything we have done away with all the caste-based discrimination? No, we have increased it. You know how? This entire Varna system was based on occupation, and every occupation was given a place in the society. Now tell me honestly, Surya, that why is it that all the entire nation is, all the youth of the entire nation is scrambling to get into that select few competitive exams, the IITs or the NEET? Like, just if you talk of profession, you can be an engineer, doctor, a CA, or a failure. So which means that only 3 professions are respected. Rest other professions, if you fail to get into these 3, then anyways you settle and you somehow or the other carry on. What can be done, right? So in that sense, the caste-based discrimination is even more pronounced in today's world. So we cannot raise fingers and accuse that there was discrimination. With all the reservation, with all of this social awareness, we have created even more pressure on the kids, on the youth, to just go into and respect just a few professions, a few occupations, and the rest are disregarded, disrespected, and they are being exploited. The farmers of the society, they are doing the most important work of feeding the world. But what is their plight? If they produce, if the market, in the market, their produce is worth 500 rupees, but what they get is just 50 rupees. Where does the 450 rupee go? Is the middleman, right? So basically that discrimination is more pronounced. Even nowadays, entrepreneurship is being encouraged, but there was a time when children of businessmen were looking at business as, oh, पापा की तो किराने की दुकान है, पैसे बहुत कमाते हैं लेकिन उसका respect नहीं है. Respect means I have to be an engineer or a doctor, right? So somewhere we have given taboos to certain occupation, and so that mindset is still there. So till the time we give up that mindset and start respecting every occupation as a limb of the society, we are not going to really have any solution to this exploitative mindset that we have, kind of inculcated in the society.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for this clarity. Now, you mentioned about people getting into IITs, NEETs, and society being ultra competitive. So everybody, and not only that, everybody is focusing on growth in today's, and we measure growth in various ways. And the major term which we see across the newspapers is the GDP. So being a spiritual person, so the question arises, are we contributing anything tangible or anything in a quantifiable manner to the country's GDP, or are we just consuming and just being leeches to the society?
Oh my God, that's a loaded question. Are spiritual people leeches in the society? They don't do anything tangible. GDP में क्या contribution है आपका? आप कुछ product बना रहे हो? आप कुछ service दे रहे हो society को? The engineers are serving, the doctors are serving, the plumbers are serving, the electricians are serving the society. The businessmen are creating, industries, and so everyone is doing something tangible to contribute to the GDP. What is it that you guys doing? Hare Krishna. What are you doing? Is there any contribution that you make to the society, or you just, spend? You just take donations and spend for your Hare Rama, Hare Krishna. So you're putting me on a corner. So yes, we have answers to that, and Krishna has given the answers. Krishna says, "Karmani akarma yah pashet, akarmani cha karma yah." So Krishna says, look at, see action in inaction and inaction in action. So let me unpack this. Let me unpack this for you. So Krishna says, see action in inaction. What do we mean by seeing action in inaction? So externally, it may appear to be inaction. Externally, the person may be appearing to be materially inactive. But Krishna says, see that there is a profound action happening there. What is action? Action of spiritual transformation of the consciousness. So although in terms of the material terms, there is no visible, there may or may not be any visible, results or outputs. But a person who is, say, chanting, a person who is doing some meditation, a person who is reading some spiritual books, while he or she is doing that, it may appear, what tangible contribution are they making to the economy? But Krishna says, wait a minute, they are making the most important contribution, that is transformation of consciousness. Because all the problems in the society, all the corruption in the society, all the pollution of the environment is caused by pollution of consciousness. And if someone is setting the consciousness right, whatever tools, talents, abilities that they have, they will use it for a productive, meaningful purpose, and not a destructive and exploitative purpose, right? So therefore, I have given you the philosophy. Now let me give you some stats really to really put you on the corner, Surya. So shall I do it? Okay, your video is frozen, it seems. Okay, so what is the cost of what is the value of spiritual culture, spiritual practices? Number one, what is the value of? So I think there's some technical snag with Surya's side. Let him join again. Yes, so meanwhile, let me continue with the discussion by the time he joins. Okay, so what is the value of spiritual practices? What is the value of spiritual values, such as if I talk of honesty? The value of honesty is equal to the cost of corruption. As per statistics of the UNO, corruption costs the world economy $2.6 trillion, which is 3% of the global GDP. So if someone is contributing towards creating spiritual awareness, making people closer to values such as honesty and integrity, what they are contributing to society is $2.6 trillion. Or they are bringing people, they are actually welcome back, Surya. I'll just again add you on the spotlight. Okay, yeah. So Surya, what I was
sorry, I lost you.
Yeah. So what I was saying was that what is the value of all of these spiritual practices? So let us monetize the value of these spiritual values. What is the value of honesty? Value of honesty is equal to the cost of corruption. So corruption costs $2.6 trillion to the global economy, as per the UNO. So if we are actually somehow enhancing people's consciousness and they become more honest, upright, and have integrity, then somewhere that corruption will reduce, and the economy will also have a good effect, right? Then what is the value of, I would say, non-violence? Which spiritual paths, spiritual practitioners, spiritual processes they recommend to have ahimsa. So the value of ahimsa is equal to the cost of violence. And what is the cost of violence? $14.7 trillion, which is actually 12% of the GDP. Because there is so much of violence inside, there's so much of anger and violence inside. It results in violence in the family, violence in the community, violence in amongst nations, wars, and what it costs the world is 12% of the GDP. So imagine if people would become more non-violent, then the GDP could rise by 12% in a single year. As a finance person, I think we would like these statistics.
Yeah, there's a lot of numbers you're throwing out. Yeah.
Okay, so and what is the value of I would say sense control or self-restraint? The cost of drug abuse and alcohol abuse in the society, which is causing $1.5 trillion of loss to the global economy, like at the minimum, very conservative figures. So 1.5% of the world economy. And then what is the value of meditation? The cost of mental disorders, such as depression. 300 million people in the world are suffering from depression. One person every 40 seconds commits suicide. In India, every day, 370 people commit suicide. So if somewhere we add to increase the spiritual awareness, spiritual consciousness, all of these things will be set in order. So therefore, this is an intangible contribution that spiritual practitioners make in the society, which is very essential. And so it's very important for us to see that there is action in action, as Krishna says, karmani akarma yaha pashyet. And then Krishna says that you should see in action, basically in action. So basically, whenever you are working, you should be able to see its spiritual connection, and therefore that path Krishna recommends is the path of yajna. That with the vision of yajna, whatever activities that you do in this world, whatever contributions you make in the world, you see the spiritual connection. So even though you are you're serving the society as an educator, as an administrator, as a businessman, or as an executor, you are seeing that I am contributing to the spiritual whole and I am making a sacrifice. So that is the vision which Krishna is recommending in the Gita, by which you can see that spiritualists are making a very important contribution.
So having a quantifiable number in front of us.
I won't ask any payment for that. I think I think hearing the numbers, you might get afraid that okay, now Prabhu is going to ask for remuneration.
Indeed, they are very big numbers, and we are able to understand the depth and importance of such spiritual people in our society just by seeing the amount of contribution they are having. And we have given I would say in a conservative side, you might have given up the numbers, so the value will be much higher. So now, Prabhu, you mentioned about inaction in action. So we do our duty. So in our day-to-day lives, to earn our livelihood, we perform various duties. Certain people might be in businesses, might do certain jobs, and everybody is kind of engaged in some or the other duties in this world. So, and at the same time, as a spiritual seeker or a spiritual practitioner, one might try to stay in the spiritual consciousness, and it sometimes is a bit difficult to do the duty and not get entangled and have a spiritual consciousness at the same time. So how to juggle all these balls, Prabhu? Can you throw some light on that?
Okay, so how to perform our duties in this world, in whatever order we are, whatever occupation we are, whatever varna or ashram we are, and at the same time maintain a spiritual consciousness and not get entangled. So what Arjuna was proposing to Krishna was, there is so much of entanglement in all of this warfare, that jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhi janadina tatkim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava. Why are you engaging me in this ghastly warfare of action of warfare when spirituality is higher than all of this just mundane actions? So then better let me go to the forest. But if we think about it, when you hire a taxi, so when the taxi is moving towards its destination, the meter ticks, right? But even when the taxi is at a halt, you tell the taxi wala ki अरे चलो मेरे को थोड़ा market से कुछ सामान खरीद के लाना है. The meter still ticks, right? So it will keep on going because it's based on the time that you engage the taxi for, right? So even it's very tricky. Sometimes we may go from one extreme to another. One extreme is just being fully into material pursuits and goals. And when you get frustrated by it, entangled and frustrated, then one may want to go to the other extreme, that I want to give up everything and just say adieu, goodbye to all of this and go to, just renounce everything. But the meter doesn't stop. The meter of entanglement and karma doesn't stop. Why? Because we have been given this life for a particular purpose. And if we don't utilize the life for that purpose, we will be charged, right? So in the case of that taxi example, if the taxi is taking me on the company's for my, like if I'm working for a company and for a company tour, I'm going on in that taxi. So whether the taxi is waiting or the taxi is traveling on the road, will I be charged? Directly the company will pay. I don't need to spend a farthing for that. So when we understand the purpose of the creation, and we align ourselves to the purpose of the creation, then we don't get entangled, because we are not using that taxi for our own selfish interests. We are using that taxi for the taxi of the human form of life for the purpose of God realization. And that is the purpose of creation. And therefore, Krishna says again in this chapter, he says, Brahmarpanam, Brahmarpanam, Brahma Havir, Brahmagno, Brahmana Hutam, Brahmaina Teva Gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhina. That one should see that every stage of life and every action that one is doing, one should look at the spiritual connection. And when one sees that the purpose behind all actions is to connect to God, is God realization and self-realization, then one is no longer entangled in those various actions. And yajna is a very beautiful means. Yajna is not just, when we hear about the word yajna, we think of, what do you think when you hear the word yajna, Surya?
Fire, smoke, a lot of ghee.
Yeah. So when we think of yajna, we think of, okay, some rituals. There is a yajna kund. There are some priests who are chanting some mantras which I don't understand, and there is the oblations being made and some mantras being chanted. I really don't know what it means. But when you translate yajna into English, what do you call it?
Sacrifice, I guess.
Sacrifice. And what the mantra, essentially the mantras say, idam cha Krishna, idam na mama. This offering is for Krishna, this is not for me. So which actually resonates with the word sacrifice. The word sacrifice means this is not for me. I'm not doing it for myself. I'm doing it for the Creator, for universal well-being. So I'm not taking proprietorship or enjoyship on my actions, right? I am sacrificing my actions for the universal welfare, for the service of God. So the principle of yajna is not just those rituals, but the spirit of sacrifice. When we understand that whatever we do is meant for, is a sacrifice for others, for the Lord, then we'll never be entangled. And it's so beautiful, actually. If suppose you have, say, 100 people in your village. If you're staying in a village and there are 100 people in your village or a community, and each and every person is selfish and is just taking care of themselves, and they are not bothered about anyone else. So my question is, and everyone can type in the chat box, for each person, how many caretakers would be there? Okay, is my question clear? If there's a village of 100 people and every person is selfish in that village, and they are just fending for themselves, fetching for themselves, and they are just interested in their own, their own enjoyment, then how many caretakers does each person have?
Would have no one, I guess, practically. Everybody's just taking care of themselves.
Zero.
Zero.
Zero. Any other guesses? None? At least you can be a little more liberal. At least one. At least the person will take care of themselves. So he or she will have just one caretaker, that is themselves. But if you flip the situation around, everyone in that community is selfless, and everyone is, just interested about the well-being of others. Then how many caretakers will each individual have? All.
Answers coming in. All.
You can quantify that. 100. 100. Now you are being little more liberal. Okay, one caretaker, Shri Krishna. Okay, Krishna will be the caretaker for each and every one. So you will have, I think, this is my answer, 99 plus the big one. So for each individual, there will be 99 other people who are taking care of him or her. And when everyone is living in that spirit, the big one, Krishna, takes care of each and every one. So which village would you like to live in? The first village or the second village? Thank you, everyone, for their inputs, and especially Neha, thank you for the whole village. And no, the caretaker Sri Krishna, and that was very nice that Sri Krishna will be the caretaker for such a village. So everyone wants to live in the second village. But what have we created? Are we creating in this world the first village or the second village? We are all unconsciously creating the first village where everyone is selfishly inclined towards themselves. Whereas Krishna has created a system of yajna where Krishna tells in the third chapter of the Gita that in the beginning of the creation, I created a system of yajna and sent forth the demigods and the human beings, and they perform yajnas which create synergy in the entire cosmos, by which everyone is doing a sacrifice. They are not working for themselves, they are working for others. And that spirit of sacrifice is something which is so sweet that all of us want to be in the second village. But somehow we are unconsciously creating the first village. So the opposite of yajna is bhoga, or consumeristic mindset. तो कंज्यूमर बोलते हैं जो कष्ट कर करके मरे वो कस्टमर. So customers, we are all talking of consumer rights, and okay, I have given this money, so I deserve to get all of these facilities. Now a consumer is also doing a yajna. What is that yajna? The consumer is sacrificing himself or herself in the yajna of sense gratification. And who is the priest in that yajna? The celebrities, the sports stars, the actors and actresses, they are the priests who are giving them direction that this is how you should, immolate, burn yourself in this fire of sense gratification. And ultimately, you have case studies of these actors and actresses living a very lonely, frustrated life towards the end, and even the smiling faces and crying hearts. And who is the beneficiary of this yajna of customer consumerism? The beneficiaries are these big corporate houses who are making more and more money at the cost of innocent consumers like you and me. So it's our choice. Do we want to live in the first village of bhoga or the second village of yajna? So if we really want to be to live a life of peace and disentanglement, the path of yajna, the path of the spirit of sacrifice, that whatever I'm doing it for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. Whether I'm studying, whether I'm working, it's for the pleasure of the Lord and for the service of the humanity. So that spirit is very empowering.
Thank you, bro. Thanks a lot. And I hope the listeners of GitaforYou podcast are getting a lot of knowledge in all these every weekend podcasts we have. So, Prabhu, in this day and age, we have so many sources of gaining knowledge, and we are just one tap away from getting knowledge. And we have ChatGPT entering into the scene. We have artificial intelligence. So we ask them any questions we have, and it has an answer for it. So does that work with spiritual knowledge, Prabhu? That is my question. And can we get spiritual knowledge just by reading books or just by scrolling through some articles, or how does this go?
Wow, beautiful and relevant question. These days, knowledge is at the fingertips. It's at your fingertip. You can just tap on Google or ChatGPT, and you whether it is a recipe or a GPS navigation or a formula, you don't need to remember anything. Everything is on the fingertips. But the problem is that it remains on the fingertips only. It doesn't enter the head. And what to speak of the heart? पहले बोलते थे by heart करो. Memorize इतना अच्छा करो कि by heart हो जाए. But somehow these days the knowledge is simply stuck at the fingertips, and what you don't use, you use, and tend to lose. If you don't use it, you lose it. So that happens with our muscles. So if you don't use a muscle for some time, there's muscle wasting. You lose that muscle. Similarly, our memory muscles, if they are not used, you lose them. So definitely, we need to deepen our understanding of gaining knowledge. And Krishna gives a very beautiful formula of gaining knowledge, that if you really want to acquire knowledge in general and especially spiritual knowledge, you need three things. You need a receptive heart, you need an inquisitive head, and you need active hands. So knowledge is not just a thing of the head. I was saying that it is just at the level of the fingers, but it is a thing of the head, the heart, and the hands. So Krishna says, Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnana jnaninam tattva darshana. So Krishna is describing that this is the way of acquiring knowledge, especially spiritual knowledge, begins with pranipata. Pranipata means humility, which is about having a receptive heart. When we have a receptive heart, then the teacher will be inspired to give us knowledge. If I am arrogant, then the teacher will better, kind of give knowledge to someone else who is more receptive. Say I come to your house and I knock at your door. But you from the keyhole, you look at it, you see me, and you find I have a gun in my hand, ready to shoot. Will I open the door? No. Right? So similarly, if I want to gain knowledge, I should be in a humble state of mind, which attracts the teacher to actually share that knowledge. If I'm in an arrogant state of mind, the door is never going to open. So, and knocking the door is equivalent to actually asking relevant questions. So we need to, which comes from the inquisitive head. So we need to always, spirituality doesn't is not about switching off your intelligence and logic. Spirituality is about awakening your intelligence and logic, but also opening up your heart to receive that knowledge. And the third thing is, okay, let it not be just a theoretical exercise of understanding some information. It should be applied. The knowledge should be transformed into realization, and therefore you need active hands, where we apply that knowledge in practice. Whatever we have learned, we should apply it, and then only we can really acquire that knowledge in the best possible way. So what are the three things, Surya Prabhu, if you can help us recall?
I'm losing you a bit. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. So our participants can type it in the chat box.
Losing. Sorry for my internet connectivity. There are some issues, I guess.
But we are able to hear you clearly.
Oh, I'm losing you in between. Just a second. I'll just try to change it.
So, my dear friends, please type in the chat box what are the three things for gaining knowledge, which Krishna says. Three essential ingredients for gaining knowledge. Receptive heart, inquisitive mind, active hands. Yes, beautiful. Thank you, Neha. Yes, Surya, are you able to hear us?
Yes, Prabhu. There are some issues, but I'll try to manage it. I'm audible, right? To you?
Yes, very much.
Yes, Prabhu. So, thank you. I lost you in a bit. I'll hear the recording and listen to the answer again. And now coming to the question about, bro, we gain so much knowledge, and sometimes knowledge isn't enough in the path of spirituality. We need to have some faith as well. That is what is the general understanding of spirituality. And in spirituality, we need to believe in certain things. There are so many things we need to believe in. So isn't prerequisite of faith equivalent of blind following, and we just tend to follow things blindly and without understanding, because there are a lot of things which we can't see or which we are unable to see because of current limitations. So won't that faith turn into blind faith?
So, so what I can't see, I can't believe. So therefore, what I can't see is not true. And whatever I see through my, or see or grasp through my sense perceptions, that is the reality that exists. So this is coming from the stream of science, like the science as we know today, as has been defined by reductionist scientists, is that that spirituality is all about beliefs. You have to believe in certain things to be able to be part of their clan. So anyone who walks into a temple or a church, they have to believe in certain things, that 5,000 years ago Krishna appeared, and they say, well, what is the proof? We have not seen. What is the proof? So how can we believe? And then you have other sets of belief that the cow is a holy animal. And so all of these set of beliefs, they don't sound logical. I can't verify it. And so, so spirituality appears to be blind following or superstition to a certain class of people. But my question is, we talk of being scientific, but can science also be to some extent blind following? Science also tells us stories which we cannot verify, which are also not reasonable. What are some of the stories which science tells us to believe in? You cannot fact check them. There are certain stories which science tells us that the universe came from Big Bang of a nothing. The universe came from nothing, and everything has to come from something, right? But this universe came from nothing. And how did nothing create this universe? By a black box called Big Bang. Right? First of all, how do you define nothing? And then how do you define this Big Bang without having any it cannot be verified by any experiment, right? So it's a story which science is telling us, and then we believe it, more or less, right? So science tells us to believe in this story. I am telling this is a story. No scientist can tell you this is a fact. They tell us this is a story by which we try to explain that how this world came about. So yes, that's a story. And then they tell us a story that life came from matter, the primordial soup. Somehow these protein chains were formed, amino acids were formed, and then suddenly life sprung up. Now, show me in a laboratory life spring up from matter even today. You can't show me, but you tell me to believe in this story. Well, fine, we can believe in stories. Stories are good to hear. And if you want us to believe, we will believe that. Then they tell us that man came from monkeys. Another good story. What is the proof? Do I see a monkey transforming into a man today? Do I see one species transforming into another one fine day? Okay, a cat decides, बहुत हो गया यार, यहाँ पे कुत्ते से डर के रहना पड़ता है, तो मैं आज शेर बन जाती हूँ. और over a period of 100-200 years भी हमने नहीं देखा. But it's a story, and चलो we believe it because science textbook में है इसके लिए, right? But then because they have the monopoly of that हमने science textbook निकाला है, so whatever is there in it, even if it is a story, it has to be called science. whereas गीता में अगर कुछ है, शास्त्र में अगर कुछ है, तो वो स्टोरी है, वो साइंस नहीं, right? So I am playing the game other way around. So now you are telling me many stories and you are telling me this is science. I would say these are also stories. If you call Krishna's appearance as a story, if you call Lord Ram's appearance as a story, if you say that how this world didn't came from a big bang, it didn't come up by chance, but by Lord's glance. That is a story that the Bhagavatam tells us, that by the glance of Mahavishnu, this universe was actually sprung into action. So we have our stories, they have their stories. We believe these stories, if you call it a belief, and they believe their stories, right? And so makes sense, Surya, so far?
Yes, Prabhu, that
Hmm.
makes
So-
sense very much.
So basically, it's about stories, and which story is more verifiable, which story is more reasonable, you decide. Now, what Krishna tells in this fourth chapter of the Gita towards the end is very interesting. He says, Shraddhaval labate jnanam tatpara samyate indriya. He says two things are important for gaining knowledge: Shraddha and sense control, faith and sense control. This is very interesting. Generally, we would say that to gain knowledge, what is important? IQ. You should have high IQ. You should have the right, best of the books. But no, Krishna says, Shraddha and sense control. These are the two very important things. And then the next verse, Krishna is even more emphatic. He says, Agyascha ashradhanascha samshayatma vinashyati. Someone who is ignorant, someone who doesn't have faith, and someone who is doubtful on spiritual knowledge, such a person will not be able to be successful in this life, and what to speak of the next. So Krishna is very emphatic in telling that a very key ingredient in gaining knowledge, any knowledge, especially spiritual knowledge, is to have Shraddha. Now, this Shraddha is not ordinary belief. This Shraddha is a state of the heart or consciousness. So now, as science tells us, to make any observation, you need to first tell what is the frame of reference. From where are you observing? You say the train is moving at 100 kilometers per hour. But no, wait, I am in a car moving at 60 kilometers per hour. And in the opposite direction. Right? So the train appears is only 40 kilometers per hour, but it appears to be to move at 100 kilometers per hour. Right? So थोड़ा physics का HC वर्मा में problems होता था ना कि frame of reference क्या है वो पहले define करो फिर आप you can give an observation. Right? So we need a frame of reference. So just as there's a physical frame of reference, there's also a mental frame of reference, the frame of reference of the consciousness. And so whether I am, whether it is material knowledge or spiritual knowledge, I need to first define a frame of reference, my consciousness. So I need to invest my heart and consciousness in the subject to be able to understand that subject. At least I need to make a reasonable investment. If I'm studying a science textbook and from the first page, my only attempt is to see how there are mistakes and there are fallacies and there are manipulations in this entire textbook, I'll not be able to understand even a single line properly. I need to have some faith that जिसने लिखा है थोड़ा कुछ सोच समझ के लिखा हो. लेकिन अगर मैं हर शब्द को हर लाइन को ऐसे डाउट से पढ़ रहा हूँ, then I'm not able, I'll just find flaws and faults. I'll not be able to get knowledge. So Krishna says Shraddha is an important ingredient to at least put some trust and faith, some reasonable faith in what you are reading. And then you verify it by your experience, verify it by the experience of others, and then use logic and reason to weigh कि ये मतलब whether you can understand it or not. So basically the first step is that we need to put some faith, some shraddha, the frame of reference of consciousness. So the scientists do it, they tell their stories because they have faith in their method of learning, and we tell our stories because we have faith in our method of learning, which is Shabda Praman. They have faith in their scientists, and which Shastra say that our knowledge is limited by the five senses. Whatever logic I will use, it will be limited by the five senses, and the five senses have their flaws. So therefore, on the basic entry level only, there are certain flaws in the way by which we acquire knowledge. So the knowledge just acquired based on sensory perception cannot be absolute. So therefore, we need to have a higher source of knowledge, which is the Shastras. And we need to put Shraddha in the scriptures and then apply those scriptures. And when we get the results, we can get it verified. We can reasonably see whether it is working or not.
Yes, Prabhu, that answers a lot. You gave a understanding of how we understand through experience. That is sometimes I feel what is lacking in the material science we study, but in spiritual science we add the flavor of experience and understanding, and having the faith that there is something in that experience. So thank you very much, Prabhu, for answering all the questions very patiently and in a detailed manner. So if there are any questions from the audience or listeners, please feel free to ask.
Yeah, if anyone wants, they can also unmute themselves. If they have any questions, they can ask, or they can put it in the chat box. If they have answered the question so well, there are no questions.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, yes. Yeah.
Prabhuji, I just wanted to ask you one thing as to if we are having some knowledge about spirituality, about Krishna consciousness, and we are willing to discuss this or spread the word among our circle, say friend circle, how do we decide as to whether the person is eligible, or whether we should go ahead and discuss something or read something to him or her? What should be the benchmark or the deciding factor?
Okay, so very nice question. Thank you, Neha, for that question. That now we have received spiritual knowledge. How do we decide that is the candidate, someone is a right candidate for that knowledge? So you will have certain markers, you will have certain indicators. First is, even in the war, you have this Red Cross Society. They are trying to, revive or treat those soldiers who have got hurt in the war. So they try to focus. They select those soldiers who are, kind of not very critically wounded, who are not, who don't have just on the verge of death. They try to save those patients who are those soldiers who can be revived with some effort, because the resources are limited, the time is limited. So so we are in a similar situation, that there are, in this age of Kali, it's a battlefield where everyone's consciousness is being wounded by the weapons of mass distraction. So we have our limited resources, so we need to look out for those who are kind of more prone to your treatment, who will be more receptive to your treatment. So what are some of those markers? One is they will come up to you and inquisitively ask questions, right? Arjuna also, when Arjuna asked Krishna his advice, Arjuna said, Shishyaste ham sadimam tvam prapannam. Krishna, I am confused, you tell me. So that was the time Krishna started speaking the Gita, because if you give advice to someone who is not interested, they might not take it up. So you see someone who is really taking interest and inquisitive and sincerely trying to ask you, that is the person you need to focus on. Then there may be others who are not directly coming up to you. They are not asking questions, but they are not inimical also. They are like neutral. They are innocent. If you share something with them, they will have an open mind. They won't be cynical or skeptical or critical outrightly. So kind of those are the people whom you cater to as a second priority also. And then the people who are inimical, critical, cynical, if you still have time, which I believe you might not have, you may with loads of compassion and prayers, may very remotely try to help them. Maybe offer them some prasad, because they need a little transformation of the heart to be able to appreciate this knowledge. So offer some prasad, speak some kind words to them, do some service, and gradually they might open up for receiving spiritual knowledge. Otherwise, even if you tell them, they might not believe or understand it. Does that make sense?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the question and thank you for the answer as well, Prabhu. So, does anybody else have any question?
So we have, I think, had a long discussion today also. So
Yes.
so maybe we can pause here if there are no questions.
Yeah, sure, Prabhu.
So thank you all.
And for today.
So we did complete the 4th chapter today, and we'll start from the 5th chapter in the next session next week, and we hope to see you all again the next week. Thank you, Surya Prabhu, for hosting us.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for tolerating me, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all the viewers.
Beautiful questions you asked in a very articulate way. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.